On a chilly November night, 7 men had their lives changed here in the Sitgreaves National Forest near Heber. Riding in their truck, they saw what they believed to be an unidentified flying object hovering in this clearing. One of the 7, Travis Walton of Snowflake, leaped from the truck and ran up for a closer look. His companions say he was struck by a bluish light emitting from the craft and knocked down. Terrified, they fled, but later regained their composure and returned. When they did, Travis Walton was gone.
Travis Walton was born on February 10, 1953, in DeQueen, Arkansas, but he grew up in the town of Snowflake, Arizona, with his parents and 6 siblings. His family was of modest means and lived in a rural area where Walton developed a love for nature and outdoor activities. Walton's parents were hard-working, blue-collar people who instilled in him a strong work ethic and a sense of responsibility. His father was a logger and taught Walton the skills necessary to work in the industry. Walton began working as a logger in his early teens and continued in this profession until the time of his abduction. Despite his lack of formal education, Walton was an avid reader and had a keen interest in science and astronomy. He was also a talented musician and played the guitar and other instruments. Walton was married twice and had several children. He was in his mid-20s at the time of his abduction and was living with his first wife and young child in the town of Snowflake. Travis Walton started working as a logger at the age of 17, following in the footsteps of his father and older brothers. Logging was a dangerous and physically demanding profession, but it provided a good income for the family and the opportunity for Walton to learn valuable skills. Walton worked as a crew member for various logging companies in Arizona and New Mexico, and he quickly became known for his skill with a chainsaw and his ability to work long hours in difficult conditions. He was well respected by his colleagues and supervisors for his work ethic and dedication. In 1975, Walton was working for a small logging company in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona when he and his crew witnessed the UFO that would change his life forever. Walton's experience as a logger gave him the physical and mental toughness to endure the traumatic experience of his abduction, and his familiarity with the forest and its terrain was crucial in his eventual return to civilization. After his abduction, Walton was unable to return to his job as a logger due to the psychological trauma he had suffered. He turned to writing and speaking about his experience, becoming an advocate for the study of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Nonetheless, his experience as a logger remained an important part of his identity and his story. On November 5, 1975, Travis Walton and his logging crew, including his friend Mike Rogers, were working in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona. After a long day of work, they were driving back to their campsite when they noticed a bright light in the distance. As they got closer, they realized that the light was coming from a large, disc-shaped object hovering above the trees. Walton, who was fascinated by UFOs, urged his colleagues to stop the truck so they could get a closer look. As they approached the object, Walton got out of the truck and walked towards the craft, ignoring his friend's warnings to stay back. Suddenly, he was hit by a beam of light from the craft and thrown several feet backwards, unconscious. His crewmates, panicked and fearing for their lives, drove away from the scene, leaving Walton behind. When they returned, approximately 20 minutes later, Walton and the UFO were nowhere to be found. The terrified crew contacted the local police and reported Walton missing, prompting a massive search effort that lasted for 5 days. Meanwhile, Walton claims that he woke up inside the UFO and was subjected to a series of medical examinations by beings he believed to be extraterrestrial. After being struck by the beam of light from the UFO, Walton found himself inside the craft. He was disoriented and in pain, but was able to see several humanoid beings standing around him. They were described as about 5 feet tall, with large heads and eyes, and thin, frail bodies. Walton initially felt extreme fear and anxiety, but gradually began to calm down as the beings communicated with him telepathically. They seemed curious about him and his surroundings, and showed him various objects and equipment on board the craft. Walton claims that he was then subjected to a medical examination, which involved the use of various instruments and probes. He felt intense pain and discomfort during the examination, but was unable to move or resist. After the examination, Walton claims that he was taken to a different part of the craft and placed in a small room with a curved, translucent wall. Through the wall, he was able to observe a planet and stars moving past the craft at incredible speed. Walton estimates that he was on board the craft for several hours before losing consciousness again. When he woke up, he was lying on a road in Heber, Arizona, and witnessed the UFO taking off into the sky. Walton's abduction experience has been the subject of much controversy and skepticism, but he has consistently maintained the accuracy of his account. After Travis Walton returned from his alleged abduction, he was subjected to several polygraph or lie detector tests to assess the veracity of his claims. The first polygraph test was administered just days after he was found by a respected polygraph examiner, Cy Gilson. 5 other independent examiners conducted similar tests in the following years. According to the examiners who tested him, Travis Walton passed all of the tests, indicating that he was telling the truth about his abduction experience. However, critics have pointed out that polygraph tests are not foolproof and can be influenced by various factors, including the subject's emotional state, the wording of the questions, and the interpretation of the results. In addition to the polygraph tests, other pieces of evidence have been cited to support Walton's story. For example, the fact that the rest of the logging crew underwent questioning and their statements were found to be largely consistent with each other adds credibility to the account. The significance of Walton's story lies not only in the details of his alleged abduction experience, but also in the broader cultural and social context in which it emerged. During the 1970s, the U.S. was experiencing a surge of interest in UFOs and extraterrestrial life, fueled in part by the popularity of movies and TV shows like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Star Wars. Walton's story emerged at a time when many people were open to the possibility of encountering aliens, and his abduction experience captured the public imagination. It also served as a lightning rod for debates about the existence of extraterrestrial life, the credibility of eyewitness testimony, and the limits of human perception and memory. Regardless of the veracity of Walton's claims, his story has left an indelible mark on the popular imagination and has contributed to a broader cultural fascination with the possibility of life beyond Earth.